Wake up, the flowers are blooming, the sunshine is radiating on my skin. Let the day begin, yeah.
Hi, welcome. I am Dana Michelle Gillespie, and I am the creator of My Moontime app. And I am excited to be here with you today, Mel.
Yeah, I'm Melissa Turner. I'm from Endoempowered, and today we want to talk about how stress impacts our period, our monthly, and some ideas on what we can do to alleviate that. And the first thing we really wanted to talk about is different moods and emotions at different times of the month. And I thought this would be a great one for you to share some insights, because your Moontime app is fantastic at really showing us these patterns that we start to recognize in our own cycles.
So the phases of the menstrual cycle, there are different fluctuations of hormonal chemicals that flow through the body, and it's become quite popular. More and more people are speaking to it nowadays and are into it, studying it more, which is awesome. But for those that are new to this concept, like a little generality and information, you can go onto the My Moontime website. There's like a free moon phase calendar for 2021 and next year 2022 that'll have this laid out, the 4 phases. I look at the hormonal cycle as 4 phases, more based on from traditional Chinese medicine than necessarily allopathic medicine viewpoint of the menstrual cycle. So if you start with the menstrual cycle in your bleeding phase, which is recognized as their first day of bleeding all the way to when you're done bleeding, that phase generally, everyone's a little bit different. The more the body is balanced, the more that it can be a really beautiful inward experience. Women have described in that state of feeling kind of in flow with their body when we shed our uterus lining. The oxytocin naturally releases. So that oxytocin, just like when we orgasm, is kind of a love hormone. So you can experience during that time like a quiet flowing stillness being within yourself. When we start bleeding, we get a teeny bit of estrogen begins to resurface again, but very, very small amount. Once we finish that bleeding phase, then we move into the pre-ovulation. I refer to it as the sage phase on the 4 phases. Not the sage phase, I'm sorry, the maiden phase. Sage is the menstruation phase. That's what I call it. In the pre-ovulation phase, the maiden phase, that's when our estrogen is really starting to rise again. And estrogen can be described as kind of an uplifting emotion. And when we are no longer bleeding, our energy starts to lift. We've got this estrogen in our body starting to rise. We're no longer kind of heavy and dense from when we were bleeding. Also, in traditional Chinese medicine, the qi stays within our womb during the bleeding time. So now the energy is starting to rise and we feel lighter. So like that's just a natural thing. Just you'll notice it if you go out and you're a jogger or walker or runner or yoga, like when you're bleeding, everything's very a little bit heavier, more grounded. When you start moving into your pre-ovulation phase, things can be lighter. It can be a great time to kind of go out and get things done. Right.
There's a newness to it as well, like a excitement. There's like the sense of freshness and newness and excitability and possibility and all that, is I feel as well.
Yeah. I always love to hear too what people experience, because it's there's generalities, but everyone has a little bit different take on it. So it's so cool listening to people. It's kind of almost sometimes I look at it as like we're looking through different filters in these 4 phases, but it does affect how our coordination is, like how all sorts of little nuances. So we have that maiden phase, pre-ovulation, however you want to speak to it. And then the testosterone starts to slightly move in, and that can feel a little bit like a subtle little umph. And that's when that ovulation phase is coming in, because the body's trying to kind of prep us, get us ready for potentially making a baby. So this is where it gets a little funny and a little tricky. The ovulation phase, ovulation is a 24-hour window, but the ovulation phase can be recognized as a few days, because you can easily get pregnant. A few days, well, your cervical mucus will be able to hold sperm and keep it alive prior to the actual 24-hour window of ovulation. But when we move into the experience, the energy experience of ovulation, characteristically, it's more experienced as kind of Zen. We no longer are really outward driven to get things done. We kind of move more into a chill and relaxed cooperation, everything's fine space.
Just, it's all going to be okay almost, rather than a kind of driving type of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, that Zen. Well, also too, once that 24-hour window of ovulation is finished, and the progesterone really starts coming in, that's that chill out and relax hormone. So once that starts really coming in, things can just feel really neutral and relaxed. Then when we start making our way down into or over to the premenstrual phase, PMS, I call it the enchantress, depending on the day and how someone has been tending to themselves throughout the cycle, it can be a little colorful. It can be a really fun time to have some really great out of the box thinking. I've definitely have had cycles where like I didn't even notice it. I was just so balanced. I just went right through, no problem. I've had other times in my cycles where I was like, okay, this is not fun. It all depends on what hormones are still present in your body, or if you just ran yourself out, which I've done too many times, and you maybe feel a little vulnerable and naked, and maybe protective and outwardly angry, trying to protect yourself because you felt so vulnerable and irritable. That one's kind of the infamous phase, but it can be also really cool to lean into, because it also sets us up to be a little bit more bold. Like, I don't give a fuck. Life's short. I'm going for it. I'm just going to do it. Like, this is it. You know, it's why I call it an enchantress or a hot mess. Like, it's that double-edged sword that's present. It's just like,
I often find that sort of phase is often where it's almost like anything that's been annoying you or kind of on that almost boiling over point, you know, it's almost like it all comes to the surface, and sometimes that can actually be a really good time to express things to people that maybe have been bothering you, or, you know, and just let it all release. It's almost like a steam build up, you know, and then you get to that point and it's like, look, I've just got to let this out. I've just got to share it and let it speak, because, you know, I actually found for me, if I didn't, it's almost like I'm compounding all of that into the body, and it's like the stuck energy that then doesn't get released, and it just returns the next month. Whereas if I actually speak and let that emotion out or that feeling out, it's like, okay, I can feel a sense of free in my body and not suppress stuff all the time, you know. So yeah, because sometimes people are scared, I guess, to speak their mind and to actually share. So that's where I feel that time can actually be really expressive. And maybe that's not expressive necessarily in terms of speaking to somebody or telling somebody, but it can be journaling or doing art, or, you know, just beating a pillow if that's how you're feeling. But it's a time of letting that emotion out, rather than just trying to be the good, well-behaved woman, you know, who's you know, all in control and everything's fine, you know. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a I love that time frame, because to me, it's also kind of, I get to notice like, how was I really taking care of myself this cycle? Did I really, check in with myself and honor myself and nurture myself? And, or where was I, leaking energy, running myself ragged? Was I, not, what was going on? There's so many useful pieces in there that I notice. That and the bleeding phase, I'll really kind of get like my body's report card being like, okay, this worked, this didn't work, so I can go back, continue to move forward and find ways to nurture and show up for myself, even if it's not necessarily like, sometimes the word nurture has like the connotation of just hugging myself and loving myself, but just giving myself space and, showing up for myself is very nurturing.
And honoring one's own needs, I think, is the biggest thing with nurturing, is really honoring, I need space right now, or I need to not be working, or I need to tell everyone to leave me alone, or whatever the situation is. One has to acknowledge where you're at and what your needs are. And the nurturing isn't, oh, let's go and have a spa day. I mean, that's lovely, but it's not about the spa day. It's about the fact that you're saying, everyone else, you can sort yourselves out. I'm going off to do something for myself. And yes, indirectly it is a spa day, but oftentimes it can just be being firm and saying, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not committing to that. I don't want to do that, or whatever it is. And actually saying, I need this for myself right now, and being okay with that, and not having any guilt or shame or anything attached to that. So many women have these huge rounds of guilt because, so expects me, or this is what a wife does, or this is what a mother does. And so we have all these things, but it's like, well, what if mom actually needs some time out, and becomes a better mom because she's had time out and she isn't so tired and stressed out. So letting go of that guilt and actually honoring, I need this right now. Baby can go and stay with grandma for a couple of nights. It'll be okay. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you more about the menstrual cycle and pain, because like you're an expert in that stuff. Can you speak to a little bit more about the menstrual cycle and pain, and understanding what drives that, how stress impacts pain? Those type of things?
Yeah, so I focus on women with endometriosis, and endometriosis typically is associated with lots of pain, lots of very heavy periods, painful periods. And so women have a almost dependency on pain, or that there's an expectation that they will experience a painful period. And so you can imagine the vicious loop of that, where you're in a state of stress or worry that you are going to experience pain, but because you worry and stress about pain, inevitably you do. And so the cycle just continues. There's a lot of very interesting research with our cycles and sleep. And I'm sure you've also looked into this a lot, is, when there's inadequate sleep or deep sleep, actually our pain receptors go up. So we perceive pain more intensely. And so what I encourage women to do is really take that week before your period. What did you call that period? The time beforehand.
Yeah, enchantress, premenstrual. Yeah.
Yeah. So taking that time
whatever you want
to really use that space to, like I said before, release any sort of anger or strong feelings. But also it's really a time to almost prepare your body for menstruation. Menstruation it's actually quite a big job for your body to do. It's, that there's a lot of muscle contraction going on, there's release, there's a lot of things happening physically. And so, we want to prepare the body for that. We want to nurture the body through that. We want to make sure that we are drinking enough water. We are taking care of ourselves. Really, that's the time when I say to women, really, that's the time I want you to really focus on being good with the diet, so really avoiding the gluten and the dairy and the things that trigger pain. That's your time. I call it the pre-prep for your period, because that's the time that you really get to almost cheat the system And then you see the result, as you say, that's when your period comes, you see the result of the work that you've put in. So often it's, just get that sleep, get to bed, be in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, be asleep by latest 11, have that enough water, making sure having enough greens in your diet, having just a salad every single, like literally just get some greens, chuck it in a bowl, put some dressing on, and just eat that before every meal. It doesn't need to be this whole big thing. It just literally get those greens in for that week. And all of that will help reduce some of that pain. Obviously, pain is a big discussion because there's many layers to pain. But what I found with women is there is a huge connection with that suppression of emotion. So suppressing anger, suppressing how you feel, that constant kind of trying to fit into boxes or fitting into molds, and allowing yourself to just be, and being okay with who you are, and being okay with how you do things, and not berating ourselves and telling ourselves off, oh, you should be more like this, or you should do the thing better, or it should be more structured, or whatever the case is, So, and the other big one for me is also guilt is a big attributor to pain. So there are sort of studies on this actually, where they've shown that where the guilt actually sits in the body, and how that ultimately expresses itself as pain in the body, because it's, once again, it's that suppressed emotion, and often one we don't know how to tackle. Why do we feel guilty that we're taking half an hour off for lunch when there's so much stuff to be done? Why do we feel that way? Where is that coming from? And so I often dive deeper with that question with women, and sort of probe a little bit deeper as to why do you feel guilty about that? It is okay for you to sit outside, enjoy the sunshine, and have your lunch without having to check your phone, do your emails, or whatever the case is during that time. And often the driver behind it is the feeling of, I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, I don't measure up enough, or if I don't do all these things, my husband's not going to love me, or I'm letting somebody down, or whatever. But there's generally a deeper driver, and so that's the kind of stuff that we uncover in the group program, because it is about sharing, and it is about women all sharing, and all of us kind of seeing that and being like, hang on, I feel the same way, so I'm not weird, I'm not abnormal, these are things other women experience. And so when there's this acknowledgement that actually other women feel this too, we almost can just give ourselves some grace and be like, okay, this is okay, I don't need to berate myself for feeling this way, so yeah. So that's, there's lots to it. Obviously there's lots of layers to pain. The program that I kind of developed is starting initially with just how do you replenish your body in terms of nourishment. We really look at nutrition. What are you eating? How is that supporting you or not supporting you? A lot of women just go very hard within the endometriosis communities. There's very much this hardcore avoidance mindset. I'm not going to eat gluten, I'm not going to eat dairy, I'm not going to eat sugar. And I think there's actually a lot of lack mentality that comes with that mindset. So my approach is much more about how do we replenish your body? What's nourishing your body? Yes, you can eat gluten-free bread, that's cool, but how is that nourishing your body? It might fill you up, but it's not nourishing, it's not supporting in terms of, what nutrients are you getting from your food. And so that's kind of where we start, and obviously, we go through what I call my reach technique, but you can grab all of that on the website. I don't want to, go into all that detail, but yeah, there's a lot of little steps that we can take in terms of getting women the support and guiding them through. So yeah.
Yeah. If you want to check out more about my moon time, the website is mymoontime.com, mymoontime.com. All the app information's on there. The workshop will be on there soon. There's some free downloads on that space, and yeah.
Cool. Lovely to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And then
I'm
if people
happy
want to find out
to.
about endometriosis and find out a natural way to approach this condition, actually get a sense of hope on what is possible, then come over to endoempowered.com. And we've got a whole lot of tools there available for you. We're also developing a new program at the moment, which is really just an introduction to how to manage it naturally. And yeah, very excited to be releasing that shortly. So yeah.
Yay,
Cool.
amazing.